All right, welcome back everyone. Dr. Ben, not a real doctor here. Following up on last week's video of laying in the sun, I'm going to share how I make my own sunscreen rather than buying the toxic garbage crap that most sunscreen is. Making sunscreen is actually pretty easy. You don't need a whole lot of stuff. I've got a few oils here, zinc oxide, which is the really important part, some beeswax, something to melt all the oils together in, and then some containers to put it in when you're done. Now, you can use something like a mason jar, but I don't like to put things like oil, body oil, lotion, sunscreen, or anything like that in glass because oil is slippery and glass by its nature is very fragile. Plus with sunscreen, you're probably going to want to take it places. So I've got some recycled little plastic containers I'm going to put it in to hold on to. So what you're going to need for this is you're going to need a 1/4 cup measuring spoon, or a measuring cup, pardon me, measuring spoon, a double boiler, like I said, something to melt all the oils together in. You're going to have some, I'm using sweet almond oil here. You can use olive oil, jojoba oil, however they're saying that now. There's all kinds of carrier oils you can use. Coconut oil, some shea butter, some beeswax, and then of course the zinc oxide. Now what we're going to do is we're going to combine all these ingredients into the jar, put it into the double boiler, get the heat up to melt everything together, and then we'll add the zinc oxide. So to start with, we're going to go with a 1/4 cup of sweet almond oil. This is probably brand new. I haven't even opened it yet. All right, back to the previously scheduled program. 1/4 cup of sweet almond oil. And just so things can roll along, I'm going to get this double boiler going. So if you've never used a double boiler before, the way this works is it boils water down here and heats the water in the pan above. This sits in that water bath in the top pan. Once you get this water down below boiling, you don't have to keep that heat really going. It's the heat from the steam rising that heats the water up here. So I'll move this to the simmer burner once we get going. Now, for the coconut oil, I'm going to use a knife to get this out of here. It's going to be a 1/4 cup of almond oil, or coconut oil. I'm sorry, 1/2 cup of coconut oil. Now, coconut oil has an SPF of about 4 to 6. One of the downsides of making your own sunscreen is that there really isn't a way to know what the SPF is. Zinc oxide has an SPF of about 15 to 20. So the time this is all said and done, you can count on it being somewhere in that ballpark of 15 to 20. But unless you're sending your sunscreen off to a lab to get tested, you're not going to know for sure. So my original recommendation stands. If you feel yourself start to burn, cover up. This is what I use mostly when I don't have a choice but stay out in the sun for a long time, or if I've just decided that I don't want to cover up today. Hopefully, me banging and clanging on this jar is not too awful on the audio. All right, there we go. 1/4 cup of coconut oil. We're going to do 2 tablespoons of shea butter. Again, this is one of those times where it's real handy to have a knife. If you've never worked with shea butter, it's gummy stuff. We're going to do rough approximation here on the shea butter. Ooh, making a mess everywhere. And one more about like that, should be about 2 tablespoons. Now, the thing about this recipe is that you can change things around and sub it out. A lot of times I like to add some infused oil. I'll cover that in a later video. I just ran out of time today to cover that. So I'll put another video on that, on how to use infused oils, how to make infused oils. They're a fantastic little skincare thing to have running around your house. Now the last thing is about a 1/4 cup of beeswax. I picked up these 2 little pucks the other day. This should be about a 1/4 cup by the time they're all melted down. And the reason I like to add beeswax to anything that I'm going to transport or might be exposed to the heat is, you can see we're not running the air conditioner today, so it's about probably 85 to 90 degrees in here. And this coconut oil is starting to liquefy. So if I didn't add the beeswax in here, you'd have real runny sunscreen. The zinc oxide might settle and things wouldn't be held into a more firm shape that was easy to transport. It's really pretty crappy when you get to wherever it is you're going and you find out that your sunscreen has leaked all over the back of your car and you now have a puddle of oil to clean up. And you also don't have sunscreen. So that's why I add the beeswax. It helps everything solidify, hold everything in place, and it keeps it from running all over the place when it gets warm. So this double boiler is going. I can see it's starting to heat up. I'm just gonna plop this in here and we're just gonna let that go until you see the oil start to all mix up. So that's what it looks like right now. You can kind of see that it's all just a mass of ingredients. So we're gonna let that go for a little bit and then I'll come back and give you an update once it started to melt. All right, so it's been about a half an hour. I was a ding dong, I could have sped that up. I just dropped those whole beeswax cupcakes in there. If you break that up, or actually what I recommend you use is the little pelleted beeswax, it's gonna melt a lot faster. You could have this done in 10, 15 minutes, but it took quite a while for those big pucks to melt and we're almost there now. So once that finishes melting, you can see that this is pretty close to everything melted here. Those last little bits, once they melt, we're gonna add the zinc oxide. So there are a few things you wanna know about the zinc oxide here. For the sunscreen, you wanna use non-nano. That's the stuff that's gonna be safe for you to use in sunscreen. And then you also don't wanna breathe this stuff in. So either be really, really, really careful while you're adding it or use a mask. I'm sure you guys still have one of those laying around somewhere, right? So I ordered this off Amazon. This is from Sky Organics. I've used some of their other stuff before and I like it quite a bit. But this is the main ingredient that is going to actually make this real sunscreen. So this is a mineral protectant. What it does is it refracts the sunlight and bends the light away from your skin. So that's what gives you the SPF with this guy. We're not quite there on the pucks yet, so it's gonna be probably a couple more minutes before we can add this. Remember, we're adding 2 tablespoons of the zinc oxide. So while we're waiting for this to melt, let's talk a little bit about essential oils. This, because it has so much beeswax in it, actually has kind of a honey smell from the beeswax. But if you're not really feeling that, you can add whatever essential oils you want for scent. I tend to do stuff like frankincense, myrrh, sandalwood. Lavender is a good one because it's good for burns. So pretty much whatever you want as far as essential oils for scent. Now you don't want to add them while this oil is heating up because the heat is going to evaporate those essential oils off very quickly. So what you would want to do is, as we're pouring them into these containers here, you're actually going to pour them into the containers and then add your drops of essential oil and then stir it into the mix. And that's gonna keep the essential oil from evaporating off too fast and keep a lot of that scent in there. Okay, after fighting the urge, the impatient urge to just say screw it and add the zinc oxide, everything is now melted. So we're gonna add 2 tablespoons of the zinc oxide. And we're gonna stir that in really well. Make sure everything is nice and incorporated. I'm keeping it on the heat because this is going to set really, really fast once I take it off. I've got everything set up over here to pour the sunscreen into the containers. Okay. And now we're just going to pour. Okay, and now the trick is to just wait and let that settle. You probably want to stir that a little bit while it's cooling because you don't want everything to settle to the bottom. So just every once in a while kind of stir that around and make sure that the zinc oxide stays distributed throughout the little container while it's cooling. Don't need the double boiler anymore. You can turn that off and move it out of your way. But that's about it. I'm just going to wait for this to cool and then I'll come back and we'll talk about what this is all set and show you the sunscreen finished product. And once it all dries, you just get a pretty solid, really kind of skin balm. So there you go. And these are just recycled little Kevin Murphy things. My lady's a hairstylist, so I stole these from her. She let me use them actually. But then you just, when you rub your hand over the balm, the beeswax will activate. The heat from your hands and the friction of rubbing will melt it, and then you can just put it on your skin. And the zinc oxide will be distributed along your skin and help keep you from burning. Now, what you do need to remember about this homemade stuff is that it is not waterproof. And again, I can't tell you what the SPF rating is because it's homemade. But somewhere in the ballpark of 15 to 20, if you feel yourself starting to burn, cover up. But these are a lot better for you, your skin, for your body, your hormonal system, than a lot of the toxic chemicals that are in regular sunscreen. So that's it. Few ingredients, maybe an hour's worth of your time once you get into it, and you'll have plenty of homemade sunscreen. And just as a recommendation, whatever you use to melt this down in, just hang on to it and keep using it for other stuff because you're probably never going to get this thing clean again. So don't use something that you really care about or that you really care about ruining, because it will be ruined when you're done most likely. But that's it for today. I'll have an infused oil video coming out for you soon. I want to do that here in the near future. If you liked the video, smash that thumbs up. Share the video with someone if they're interested in making sunscreen. And let me know in the comments down below how this turns out for you. I'd love to hear how your sunscreen adventure goes. I'll put links for the products I use down in the details below as well, so you can pick them up if you'd like to. Until next time, keep your life in motion.